Hey, it's Bob Negen, and in this episode of Real Retail TV, I'm going to talk to you about this terrible, terrible thing called beating yourself up. This episode is Stop Beating Yourself Up. The nature of being an entrepreneur is achievement. You start your business and you want to grow it. You have an idea and you want it to be successful. Your business isn't everything you want it to be. As an entrepreneur, you have the opportunity to take responsibility and make it what it can be or not, but you have the opportunity to try. So the nature of being an entrepreneur is achievement. The problem with being an entrepreneur and the problem with this focus on achievement is we tend to start beating ourselves up when we're not doing everything we know we could do, right? Oh, I need to do this, I need to do that, I need to do this, I need to do that. This isn't good enough, that's not good enough. And it all starts to fall, to build and grow within ourselves. It becomes a source of enormous stress. Some people call it in the weeds. You get in the weeds. There's all these things that need to happen and you can't see out of the weeds. I was a waiter for 12 years and there is no worse feeling than being in a restaurant and being in the weeds. You feel like you're drowning. You feel like you're never going to get control of your section again. It's a terrible feeling. And as entrepreneurs, you know the feeling of being in the weeds. So, a couple of things. First of all, quit beating yourself up. Being in the weeds, not getting everything done is just part of being an entrepreneur. But I want to talk to you about a book and a concept, because if you are in the weeds, if you are beating yourself up because you're not doing everything you know you could do to make your business what it could be, this is the book for you. It's called The Gain in the Gap, or The Gap in the Gain, by Dan Sullivan and Dr. Benjamin Hardy. And this concept, Dan Sullivan has been teaching this concept for quite a while. In fact, he has one of his very small Dan Sullivan books. Here, I'll show you. Most Dan Sullivan books, I might even have The Gap in the Gain. No, I don't. Most Dan Sullivan books are this big. They're written so that they can be read on a plane ride from Toronto to Chicago. But now Dan Sullivan is teaming up with Ben Hardy to write what they call real books. So he talked about the gap in a small book, now in a large book. But the gap is when you are always looking at the ideal. So think about it this way. So the ideal is a mental construct, much like the horizon. So we are on the east side of Lake Michigan here, and if you were to sail out of the Grand, down the Grand River, out into Lake Michigan, and continue to sail west into the horizon, you would never get to the horizon. You'd get to Milwaukee, but never to the horizon. Why? Because the horizon is a mental construct. The ideal as an entrepreneur is a mental construct. Think about how many times you have said, when I finally get to this, I'm going to do that. only to get to this and not do that. You move on to the next this. I remember Susan and I, way back when we first started Whiz Bang Retail Training, saying when we do $100,000 a year in annual revenue, we're going to do two things. We're going to go to Tapawingo, which is this restaurant that we always wanted to go to, and we're going to start working 4-day weeks. Well, we got to $100,000. It was a long time ago, thankfully. And we did go to Tapawingo, but of course we never started having 4-day weeks. What we did was we got excited about the success we had, and we started working harder to get to the next ideal. So there's the ideal, and then there's reality. There's what has really happened. And the gap is between the ideal and what is real. And the problem is, if you measure your progress against the ideal, you are always going to be disappointed because the ideal, like the horizon, doesn't really exist. Let me say that again. The ideal doesn't exist. So when you measure your progress against the ideal, it is incredibly demotivating. I'm not getting there. I'm looking at this project and it's not getting done. I'm looking at this year's sales and they're not matching last year. It's demotivating. But what Dan Sullivan and Ben Hardy talk about in this book, and by the way, buy this book, trust me on it. What they talk about is the way to measure success is not against the ideal. It's to measure success against what you have done, the gain. So the concept is you measure success backwards. So rather, when Susan and I got to $100,000, yes, we had that moment of celebration, but right away we moved on to the next goal. And when you measure your success backwards and are grateful for what you have done, that is motivating. That process of understanding what you have done and creating goals around where you are, not against the ideal, that becomes motivating. This is super, super important. So we bought a copy of this book for everybody in the Platinum Mastermind group. Several people in the Platinum Mastermind group bought a copy of this book for everybody on their team. We bought a copy of this book for everybody on our team. Can you tell we believe in this book? But there's this whole idea. When you read the book and you sit in it, you realize how much you've really done. Let me say it again. Think about what you've done. If you're stressed out right now because of the things you want to do or the things you feel you need to do, quit beating yourself up. I'm looking at you and telling you that you are flat out awesome. Say it again. You are flat out awesome. Think about everything you've done in the last 2 years. That alone is enough to make me tell you that you are awesome. So if you start getting into the gap, that's what it's called. When you get into the gap, oh, woe is me. I haven't done this. I have that problem. I have this problem. This thing's not going right. I wish this was happening. Get out of the gap. Go back and ask yourself what you have done. And when you start thinking about all the stuff you have done, your heart will be full and you will move forward. You are absolutely amazing. I want to say that to you again. So that's the language. Get out of the gap. Whenever you find yourself stressed out, get out of the gap. I want to share 2 other things that really help with gap thinking, 2 habits that I have that are really, really powerful. And actually, one of them is talked about in here. I journal every day, twice a day. Every once in a while, I'll miss a session, but rarely. And I mean, 90% of the time, I miss a session. 90% of the time, I miss a session. But every once in a while, I'll miss a session, but rarely. And I mean, 90% of the time, I miss a session, but rarely. And I mean, 90% of the time, I miss a session, but rarely. And I mean, 90% of the time, I miss a session, but rarely. And I mean, 90% of the time, I miss a session, but rarely. And I mean, 90% of the time, I miss a session, but rarely. And I mean, 90% of the time, I miss a session, but rarely. And I mean, 90% of the time, I miss a session, but rarely. And I mean, 90% of the time, I miss a session, but rarely. And I mean, 90% of the time, I miss a session, but rarely. And I mean, 90% of the time, I miss a session, but rarely. And I mean, 90% of the time, I miss a session, but rarely. And I mean, 90% of the time, I miss a session, but rarely. And I mean I've been journaling since 97. I think I've missed a full day 5 times in all those years. I start every morning when I journal with gratitude, because gratitude tells me, or when I write, when I'm grateful, it reminds me of everything that I already have. So it's hard to be in the gap. It's hard to be grumpy when you're grateful. So start every day with gratitude. And then the other thing that happens, and this came directly from Dan Sullivan's little book on the gap, is when I journal at night, I always search for at least 3 wins. I go back into my day and find moments or things that I've done or things that were accomplished that I consider wins. And so what I'm doing is I'm bookmarking my day with positive thoughts and gratitude for what I have done, what I have accomplished, what I am grateful for. Not all the stuff that will put me in the gap. Not all the stuff that I haven't done. So I hope that you find that helpful, and I hope that you'll take my advice and buy this book. So that's my thought for you today. If you have any questions or comments, please put them down below. I always love to hear from you. I'm Bob Negen, and we'll talk soon.